My younger sister is marrying my ex who cheated on me for years, now they want me to be maid of honor. Jake was my ex-boyfriend. We were together for 7 years. We first crossed paths back in college, and right from the start, he had this charm about him, especially that warm, easy smile that could make your heart skip a beat. It wasn't long before we started hanging out more regularly, getting to know each other on a deeper level. Turns out, we had a lot in common: our hobbies, future goals, and even our sense of humor seemed to line up perfectly. Within a few months, we made it official and started dating seriously. Throughout our relationship, Jake was affectionate, thoughtful, and made a real effort to be present. We never fought over money, and we always backed each other's dreams. He took care of me when I was sick and paid attention to the little things I needed. Early on, Jake opened up about his family. He told me he was estranged from his dad because his dad had cheated on his mom and walked out on them. Things weren't much better with his mom either, he barely saw her and kept his distance. That messy family dynamic left Jake with a pretty rough self-image. He struggled with how he looked and often doubted his sense of direction in life. Even from a young age, he craved approval and wanted to be liked, almost desperately so. I did what I could to lift his confidence and help him see himself in a better light, but over time, his insecurities only seemed to grow. Eventually, he made the decision to drop out of college, and after that, his mood took a dark turn. He spiraled into this constant state of self-doubt and low self-worth, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get through to him. It didn't help that when I graduated and landed a great job, got promoted twice in just 2 years, he started to feel even more inadequate in comparison. He'd say things like, "I don't think I'm good enough for you." And deep down, I think that constant need for validation is what led him to seek out attention from others. Over the course of our relationship, Jake cheated on me more than once. The first time was barely a month after we started dating. He had gone off to a volunteer camp, something he did every year, and while he was away, I noticed something off about his behavior when he came back. So, I asked him about it. He dodged my questions, which made me suspicious. I did some digging and discovered he'd been on Tinder, chatting with another girl and sending her inappropriate messages. When I confronted him, I told him point blank that his behavior crossed a line. We sat down and had a serious talk about our boundaries, and in the end, I chose not to blow it up, hoping that he would learn from it and change. The second time I found out he was cheating, it hurt even more. I discovered he had been staying in touch with his ex-girlfriend for the first 4 years of our relationship. He would send her flattering messages, complimenting her looks and saying things like, "I always thought your braces were cute, even when you hated them." When I asked him why, he claimed she had low self-esteem and that he just wanted to make her feel better. I didn't buy it, but I let it go, trying to be understanding. Then came the third time. We were just sitting together when he was showing me something on his phone, and a message popped up from some girl. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but he quickly brushed it off and said, "Don't worry, she's ugly," which struck me as a strange way to talk about someone randomly texting him. Later, when he stepped out, I glanced at his phone and saw affectionate messages between them. Before I could read much, he yanked the phone out of my hand and deleted everything. He insisted she was just an old friend and said he hadn't spoken to her in ages. He apologized and blocked her, and once again, I chose to let it slide. About a month after that, things took another turn. He told me he was going out to dinner with his sister, but something about the story didn't sit right. When he got home, he gave me this whole update about how well she was doing, but I knew better. Thanks to a quick search on Google, I found out he had actually gone on a date and stayed at her place until around 1 a.m. I gave it a week, hoping he'd come clean on his own. I even hinted that I knew he wasn't with his sister, giving him a chance to be honest. But he didn't budge until I confronted him directly. He admitted to meeting someone from an app for dinner but denied going to her place or even paying for the meal. I ended up laying out the evidence I had, but even then, he refused to tell the full truth. The next time he cheated was about 4 years into our relationship. By then, we had become pretty open about using our phones and laptops around each other. But whenever it came to this one particular girl, he would avoid opening her messages on Facebook or WhatsApp if I was nearby. That raised red flags, so I asked him about it. He swore nothing was going on, but my gut told me otherwise. So, I snooped again. And sure enough, I found explicit messages between them, him asking her to take on a dominant role in bed, something he had never been comfortable with me doing. I brought it up, and he broke down. He apologized and deleted her from his contacts right away. In the middle of all this, he also admitted to having a porn addiction. That revelation caught me completely off guard. At that point, I suggested we try counseling together to work through everything. We went to a few sessions, tried to get to the root of his behavior, and for a while, things seemed to get better. Our communication improved, and I felt like we were making progress. But then he got a new job, and that changed everything. The position required him to be on site and away from home 5 nights a week. One weekend, after he got back, he was clearly too tired to cover his tracks. I noticed he had been calling 2 different women every single day he was gone. I didn't confront him right away, I gave it a day to see if he'd come clean. But when he didn't, I brought it up. He instantly denied it and threw the question back at me, saying, "Do you have proof?" At that moment, I didn't. But I knew what I'd seen. The next night, after he fell asleep, I went through his phone thoroughly, and that's when I found all the messages to those 2 women in his deleted folder. For the past 30 days, the limit of what his trash folder could store, I found messages between him and 2 different women. He spoke to them the same way he used to talk to me, making the same promises he once made to win my heart. One of the messages to the second girl said she was the perfect girl for him, and he couldn't wait to take her out for dinner once he got back from his trip. Now that I had solid proof, I planned to confront him. But the next morning, before I could say anything, I woke up to find him crying beside me. For a split second, I thought maybe he'd seen that I had gone through his phone and discovered the truth, but instead, he started telling me he'd had a nightmare about us breaking up and was terrified that I was going to leave him. I narrowed my eyes, feeling the suspicion flood back in. I pulled out his phone, opened up the texts, and started reading them aloud right there while he sat beside me, weeping and whispering how sorry he was. But this time, I was so furious that I couldn't help but laugh. Not because it was funny, far from it, but because the absurdity of it all had finally hit me. How could someone claim to love me, over and over, and still betray me like this? How could he lie so easily, looking me straight in the eye? I kept thinking, if I hadn't found those messages, would he have just kept lying? Would I have gone on, blind to the truth? We got into a massive argument. I told him I was done, I was ready to leave. But then he dropped to his knees, crying, begging me not to walk away. He said he loved me, that he was sick, and he didn't know how to live without me. And the worst part? I still loved him. No matter how much he had hurt me, seeing him cry broke something in me every time. He kept saying he couldn't control himself but that he wanted to change. He told me, again, how much he loved me and how he dreamed of marrying me one day. Deep down, I knew I was being made a fool of every time he cheated, every lie he spun, every promise he broke. But there was still a part of me that held on. We had spent so many years building a life together. We'd helped each other through some incredibly hard times, and we'd shared a lot of good memories too. He could still make me laugh like no one else. I told myself I would be giving up too much if I walked away just yet. So I stayed, but I made it clear. This was it. His very last chance to prove he could change. And to his credit, for about 1.5 years, things really did feel magical. He stopped being secretive with his phone and genuinely seemed to be putting in the effort. We were closer than ever. But then, in the final year of our relationship, I noticed something shift. His mood started dipping again. He became withdrawn, only to suddenly swing the other way and act overly affectionate. He stayed up late on his phone more often, and the energy between us felt off. This pattern went on for a couple of weeks. My instincts were screaming at me that something wasn't right. Even though I hadn't snooped since our counseling days, that feeling wouldn't go away. One day, he went to the bathroom and, without thinking, left his phone tucked under his pillow. When I picked it up, the screen was still on. It had been used just minutes before. What I found left me speechless. He had made a new Discord account and there, plain as day, were conversations with 8 different girls. One of them stood out, a girl he had been talking to regularly for a while. I recognized her username because I'd asked him about her before. Around the time I started my new job, I noticed he'd been chatting with her every day. When I asked, he told me she was just someone he met on Reddit through a friend-finding forum. But that was a lie. The messages between them went way back. He had shared details about our relationship, private things, and even sent her videos of himself. She never sent any photos in return, so I had no idea who she was or what she looked like. I was beyond furious. We exploded into a screaming match. He accused me of invading his privacy, and I shot back that he had used me and betrayed me over and over. That's when he finally admitted it, he'd developed feelings for her. He said they'd been talking for a year, and his emotions had started to get involved. He claimed he would have told me eventually because he wanted to break up. I was stunned. Completely blindsided. He sat there, telling me that he wanted to explore the possibility of a future with this girl he met on Reddit. After everything we'd been through, all the fights, the makeups, the counseling, I still held on to some ridiculous hope that we'd find our way back to each other. But now, he was leaving me for a stranger from the internet. Jake said he thought ending our relationship was the right thing to do. That it wasn't fair to keep being with me while his heart was drifting toward someone else. As he spoke, I felt my eyes fill with tears. 7 years of my life just crumbling in front of me. The relationship we had poured so much into was gone, and I felt everything all at once: grief, confusion, betrayal, and heartbreak. I felt used. I felt discarded. Despite everything, part of me still hurt for him. I hated that I still loved him in the middle of all that pain. Fast forward 5 months after the breakup, I was still trying to pick up the pieces, still working through the wreckage Jake left behind, when my younger sister dropped a bombshell. She announced she was getting married. I was stunned. I didn't even know she was dating anyone, let alone planning a wedding. When I asked her about it, she invited me out to lunch, saying she wanted to introduce me to her fiancé. I agreed, feeling excited but also curious. I couldn't wait to hear who had finally won over my baby sister's heart. When the day arrived, we met up, and she was absolutely glowing. She went on and on about how amazing her fiancé was, sharing little stories about how they met, how they fell for each other. It was all very sweet. But as she talked, something in my gut twisted. Her description started sounding eerily familiar. And then she said his name. Jake. Yes. That Jake. My ex-boyfriend of 7 years. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of twisted joke. My sister, my kind, thoughtful, emotionally careful sister, had gotten engaged to Jake. She had always been the one who took her time with relationships. Even though she was popular in high school and had plenty of guys interested in her, she never rushed into anything. She stayed single for years by choice. So I sat there, dumbfounded, trying to process how in the world this could have happened, how she ended up falling for, and now planning to marry, the man who had betrayed me in more ways than I could count. Growing up, I was always pretty close with my sister, even though we had a 7-year age gap. That distance in age meant we didn't always connect on everything, but there was always love. Still, when it came to my breakup with Jake, I never found the words to tell her the full truth. Honestly, I felt embarrassed about everything he'd put me through. And deep down, I knew that if she understood the real story, she'd never be with him, at least, that's what I hoped. So when she started telling me about her engagement, I couldn't help but ask if she really knew who she was getting involved with. Her response caught me off guard. She looked at me, smirking like she knew something I didn't, and with a calm sort of smugness, she told me she was fully aware of what she was stepping into. My eyebrows scrunched in confusion until she dropped a truth I wasn't ready for. She was the girl. The mysterious girl Jake had been emotionally involved with. The one who helped break us up. My jaw nearly hit the floor. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister. She explained how they had met through Reddit, stumbled across each other's profiles, and started talking. She said Jake had known the entire time that she was my sister, and still, he kept the conversation going, even as things turned flirtatious. He pursued her anyway. She said it had already been 5 months since my breakup with Jake, so she assumed I would have moved on by now. That's why she felt comfortable finally sharing the news of their engagement. According to her, the rest of the family already knew. In fact, they had told her she had to talk to me first before announcing it to everyone. They also made it clear that I was expected to be at the wedding. My presence was supposedly essential to show support, or else some of the family members weren't planning to attend. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was boiling. And as if that wasn't enough to knock the wind out of me, Lisa decided to drop another bomb. She and Jake wanted me to be their maid of honor. Hearing those words felt like a cruel joke. I was expected to stand by them, smiling like everything was fine, like I hadn't been left shattered by the man she was now marrying. They wanted me to pretend everything was okay, to help celebrate their love, when I was still trying to recover from the mess Jake had left me in. Lisa kept talking about how much it would mean to them if I took on that role. She said it was about family and showing unity. I left that conversation feeling completely broken and betrayed. Since then, I've been torn in two. Part of me wants to scream at both of them and tell them to go to hell. But the other part, the part that's still exhausted from being the bigger person, keeps worrying about how this will make me look to the rest of the family. What if they see me as bitter? What if I become the subject of whispers and sympathy at the next family gathering? Oh, poor thing. She just couldn't handle it. That's where I am now, conflicted, heartbroken, and unsure of what to do. Despite loving my sister and wanting her to be happy, I can't get past the man she's chosen. I don't know how I could possibly stand there at their wedding and pretend like everything's okay. Just the thought of watching them exchange vows makes my chest feel tight. I keep hoping that time will soften these feelings, that somehow I'll get some clarity, but right now, I just feel stuck. So here I am, reaching out on Reddit, trying to figure out whether saying no would make me the villain, or if it's the only sane choice I have left. Update 1. It's been a month since that lunch meeting with my sister, and I haven't spoken to her since. She's reached out several times, but I still haven't made up my mind. Last week, the wedding invitations were sent out, and yes, I got one. I didn't RSVP. I don't even want to go. Yesterday, my mom asked me to come over. I agreed, thinking it was just going to be a quiet visit between the two of us. But when I got there, she was waiting with my sister and my aunt. They'd staged an intervention. My mom kicked things off by saying how important it was for me to attend the wedding. She told me I was isolating myself from everyone and needed to stop. She said I was being selfish. That was my breaking point. I looked at her and said, flat out, that I couldn't stand there and watch my ex-boyfriend, the same man who cheated on me repeatedly, marry my sister. I asked if she even knew the full extent of what Jake had done. Because if she did, how could she expect me to just smile and clap? Lisa started crying, of course. She accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship with lies. Then, to add insult to injury, she suggested maybe I was acting this way because I wasn't dating anyone at the moment. She even said she'd be happy to set me up with one of Jake's best men so I wouldn't feel lonely at the wedding. That did it. I told her, without raising my voice, that I wasn't going to her wedding not because I was bitter or jealous, but because I couldn't support her marrying the worst man I'd ever been with. A man who destroyed me over 7 years. She kept crying, calling me names, accusing me of being jealous and bitter, saying I was out to ruin her big day. I left right after that. Later, my mom called and made it crystal clear if I didn't at least show up as a guest, she'd cut me off from the family entirely. She said they needed me there to keep up appearances. To show the world that there were no hard feelings. Apparently, Lisa's already facing backlash from the rest of the family, and I'm expected to smooth that over by smiling in the background. Right now, I'm so angry. It feels like whatever I had with my sister has been destroyed beyond repair. And what stings even more is that my family still expects me to put my pain aside to protect her feelings. I love my family. I really do. But I'm so tired of always being expected to take the high road, especially when no one's willing to do the same for me. Update 2. Before I get into this next part, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's responded so far. Your advice, empathy, and kind words mean more than I can express. Some of you have suggested elaborate revenge, but that's just not who I am. I don't believe in getting even just to feel better. Over time, I've come to realize that the deepest hurt I've been carrying doesn't even come from Jake or Lisa, it comes from my mom. Ever since my sister announced her engagement, I've felt completely abandoned by her. She hasn't stopped for 1 second to think about what I've been through or how this entire situation has affected me. In the end, I know I can't control who my sister marries. If Jake is the man she wants to build a life with, that's her choice to make. But I needed to try, one last time, to speak honestly with my mom. So last Friday, I went to her house when I knew she'd be home alone. I sat her down and told her everything. I told her how much it hurt that she ambushed me with that intervention. How I felt like she was siding with Lisa without ever asking what I was going through. I explained why I couldn't be at that wedding. I told her how Jake's betrayal tore me apart and how Lisa's decision to be with him had changed our relationship in a way that couldn't be undone. I made it clear that this wasn't about jealousy or bitterness. It was about pain and the fact that I couldn't keep pretending like none of it mattered. I just couldn't imagine being anywhere near Jake ever again, especially not on the day he marries my sister. I didn't feel obligated to show up and play the part of the supportive sibling, especially not to help salvage her reputation in front of our extended family. She chose to take this path, one that was bound to raise eyebrows, and she had to know people would talk. But if she truly loved him, then their opinions shouldn't matter to her at all. As I explained all this to my mom, I could see her face shifting. She wasn't hearing me, she was judging me. And when I finally finished, she looked me straight in the eyes and said something I'll never forget. She told me she'd been right all along, that I was a vindictive hag, and she was ashamed to call me her daughter. According to her, my bitterness was the reason I'd end up alone. She called me pathetic for refusing to attend the wedding and accused me of being so full of pride I couldn't see past my own ego. Her words hit like a freight train. I stood there, silent for a moment, feeling the weight of years of love and loyalty crashing down around me. I started crying, not because her insults hurt more than the rest, but because it was her. My own mother. The one person I thought might try to understand me. I walked out of her house that day and promised myself I wouldn't go back, not to her, not to any of them. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own well-being for people who didn't seem to care how much pain I was in. The days that followed were some of the lowest I've felt. And just when I thought I couldn't take another hit, an email landed in my inbox, from Jake. I had blocked him on everything after the breakup, so this was his way of getting around that. The email was long and filled with half-hearted apologies. He tried to explain everything, as if that would somehow undo the damage. He claimed he was really in love with my sister now, like that was supposed to make it okay. He wrote about how he couldn't control who he fell for and insisted he had changed. But what really pushed me over the edge was one line in particular. He told me to set my feelings aside and just be there for my sister on her big day because it would mean the world to her. Reading that made my blood boil. The audacity. After everything he put me through, years of betrayal, manipulation, and lies, he thought he could guilt me into showing up with a smile. That was the final straw. If there had been even a flicker of doubt in my mind about skipping the wedding, it was gone now. Update 3. It's been 3 months since all of that. And I know the last update may have come across as raw, but I want you to know that I'm doing better now. A lot better. After my last confrontation with my mom, things stayed tense between me and my family. My sister kept reaching out, still trying to pressure me into coming to her wedding. Despite her relentless efforts, I stood firm in my decision. The fear of being painted as bitter, the pressure from the people I loved, and maybe even a tiny piece of hope that I could someday mend things with my sister, it all made me consider going. But in the end, I chose to protect myself. I didn't go. And you know what? Turns out, I wasn't the only one. From what I've heard, the wedding was far from the fairy tale my sister imagined. A number of my cousins and even my grandparents chose not to attend. Their absence sent a clear message: they didn't support the marriage. That quiet protest stirred up tension at the event and didn't go unnoticed. Afterward, my sister sent me a long, angry text. She blamed me for everything, said I had ruined the most special day of her life. That was the last straw for me. I blocked her. I needed peace. I needed space. And I needed to move forward. Since then, I've focused on rebuilding myself. Therapy has been a huge part of that journey, helping me process the breakup, the betrayal, and the wreckage left behind by my own family. Instead of getting swallowed up by the pain, I've thrown myself into work. I've leaned on the people who've stood by me not out of obligation, but because they genuinely care. My friends have become the family I didn't realize I needed. They've seen me at my worst and never once judged me for it. They've helped me laugh again, and they've reminded me that I'm not alone. Looking back, I see now just how much strength it took to walk away from people I loved. But hard times have a way of revealing what and who really matters. Healing is still a work in progress, but I'm owning that journey now. I refuse to stay stuck in the role of the victim. This is my story, and I'm taking it back, one step at a time.